successful business executive walked away from a lucrative career to embark on a mission to help people struggling with depression and other mental health challenges. The author's own decades-long battle against depression inspired the book called Back from the Brink, featuring stories from people including well-known politicians, athletes, and one familiar movie star. He's now working with individuals and businesses to help remove the stigma from mental illness and building workplaces where everybody can thrive. Welcome author and advocate Graeme Cowan. How are you? So nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Very happy to have you here. I really enjoyed this book, in part because you share so personally your experience in an unvarnished way, but you also feature the stories of other people and the different ways that they've coped and managed, which isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. What was your inspiration for writing the book?
When I was in really bad depression, and I went through the worst depression my psychiatrist ever treated, I really yearned for stories of people who had been there and come back from the brink.
You want to know it's possible, right?
I wanted to know it was possible.
And you went searching for these stories, and you found them, obviously, and you found this huge variety. What did you find in common among these people?
There was, I think the big thing was it was multiple factors that helped in their recovery. Exercise played a really big role. Mm-hmm. Emotional support, either from loved ones or support groups. Being able to share what's going on with them. Fulfilling work. Just about every one of them talked about how mental health advocacy was the most fulfilling thing they'd ever done. This is people like Patrick Kennedy or Alistair Campbell, who was Tony Blair's chief advisor. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Big roles, but they're saying this work they just find most rewarding.
Patrick Kennedy, I just heard a speech he gave here in Seattle about his own work in mental health legislation and trying to get insurance to pay for on parity mental health expenses. He was very interesting in this book. So was Glenn Close, who wrote the foreword. Tell me how she got involved.
There's a lot of persistence. She has a sister, Jessie, who has bipolar. And it was really Jessie who reached out to Glenn and said, if you could do one thing that would really, really help me, it would be to help break down stigma related to this. And so they created an organisation called Bring Change to Mind. And they're doing fantastic work in that area about just helping to create a conversation.
Which is so important, right? I mean, one of the things that I saw in people's either management or recovery was they weren't isolated. Isolation is so destructive.
It's hugely destructive, and your natural inclination when you're in the red zone, when you are depressed, is to isolate.
To clam up, right?
To clam up, but just forcing yourself to go a little bit outside your comfort zone and reconnect with loved ones is a really important aspect of recovery. Or be in a group. Doesn't matter whether it's a yoga group or a book group or a tennis group or a golf group. That reconnection is a really important element.
Those human connections. Let's talk about some of your tips, and I want to encourage people to read the book because there's no way I could describe the journey that you take with each of these people who you feel for with every word, but you have some ideas that you'd like all of us to consider. These have to do with being in the workplace. Be proactive about helping employees treat depression. What does that mean for employers and businesses?
Well, I think it's just having information around that's easily accessible, which provides people a pathways of where to get help. Some of the most progressive organisations are now actually interviewing in their engagement surveys and asking people if they have a mental illness and would they feel comfortable talking to their supervisor about it. This is what it really is about, to break down the stigma in the workplace. That's a really important.
To me, that's kind of the last frontier, because you might feel safe with your home and your family, but you would be so worried at your job about what your boss might think, what your coworkers might think. But in fact, since all of us experience this in our own lives or families at some point, and you spend so much time at work, what a perfect place to try to make some progress. You ask us to know how to recognize the signs of depression.
It's just really observing changes in behaviour, and often that is someone isolating, or they could be always really reliable with getting reports or things in on time, and suddenly they're later. So inevitably it is about a change in behaviour. They could be dishevelled, turning up dishevelled or later to work or that sort of thing.
They're not sleeping well, just
changes
changes
you can see it in
like
their face.
that.
It's changes in behaviour and their disposition, you can sense it.
Boy, that is so true. When people are in depression, there's something just kind of gray about their visage at that point, which leads us to point number 3, which I was fascinated to hear what you wanted to say about this. Teaching managers and other team members and colleagues how to ask if someone's okay, because there are ways to do it that are productive and ways that might not be.
I love this. It is so simple and it is so successful. We have an initiative in Australia which I helped start called Are You OK Day. And what it's about is just encouraging people to reach out to people they're distressed about. And there's a 4-step process. One is break the ice, talk about the weather, talk about sport, talk about family, and then make an observation about a change in behaviour that you've seen in that person. You know, it could be turning up late or not getting the reports on time. Next step is listen without judgment. And this is what men are often really bad at, because the first thing offered, they go straight to problem solving. Whereas when people feel understood, that will dramatically increase the chance of you being able to influence them. Mm-hmm. The third step is to encourage action, you know, to see their primary physician. If they're in a big workplace, they could have an employee assistance program, go to a helpline, take action, one little step. And then the third thing is to follow up. And this is important because when you're in the red zone, and I can speak from first-hand experience, you often do give up. You think you've tried everything, and just one little step, follow up to see if they've done it. And we've
or
just
offer to go with.
Offer to go with or to make the appointment. We've just had so many letters and emails just saying that simple conversation has changed lives.